When a game loses over $400 million for a studio and for a company, that they decide, you know what, everybody that's working there, get the fuck out. And that's exactly what just happened with Sony and the failure of Concord. We watched as Concord, when they put out their first trailer, that got absolutely destroyed by the fans. As we said, this is a pretty good indicator that people aren't receiving your game very well when you have something like this. The gameplay trailer with a 10-to-1 dislike to like ratio. Not good news for you initially when it comes to Concord. And obviously, as we knew, the more came out about this game, when it was failing on Steam, failing to actually chart anywhere on the PlayStation charts, it was obvious that this thing was a failure. And a lot of people in the media didn't want to accept it. They said, hey, give this game a chance. It's worth it. We promise. A hero shooter released in 2024 that's not free to play, and it was so focused on DEI and character pronouns that every single playable character looked retarded. And that they spent over $400 million on this thing. And embarrassingly, Sony, like a week after its release, said, this isn't working. We're shutting this shit down. We're going to refund everybody. Sorry about how embarrassing this was. And 2 weeks after it was released, Concord was taken down. It was done. And now, so is the fucking studio. Sony and PlayStation shut down Concord developer Firewalk Studios. Sony Interactive Entertainment and PlayStation Studios head Herman Holst announced that it has shut down Concord developer Firewalk Studios about a year after it was purchased from Probably Monsters. And keep in mind, this game costs about $400 million to make. That doesn't include however much Sony paid to buy this studio. I don't know what that number is, but put that on top of whatever money was lost on the game in general. In a post to Sony Interactive Entertainment website, Holst wrote, as part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen SIE studio businesses, we've made a difficult decision relating to two of our studios, Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios. Now, from what I can tell, Neon Koi is like a mobile game developer. I really don't know how much that they've done. But Firewalk Studios is the one that garnered the most attention because of the massive failure of Concord. And they said, thank you to Firewalk Studios for your expertise, your support, your craftsmanship, all these things. Fuck you. I wouldn't say thank you to Firewalk Studios. They lost you $400 million. I just say, hey, get out. You're done. We're closing down this shithole.
Yep. 100%, man. Well, we kind of already predicted this. You know, they in their statement, obviously, they try to say, oh, there was so much interest in this game. But even when the beta came out, I think their max concurrent players was like 2,300 or something like that. They never, ever had that much interest in the game. Even when people were playing it, some people said it was fine. Some people said it was kind of fun. But most people said it wasn't anything new. It wasn't anything interesting. Nothing about this game screamed that it was going to be a massive hit. And the other side of this too is that Neon Koi, and this is shout out to Madam Savvy, they have done nothing. They've developed 0 games. There was no announcements from them about any game that they've developed. All that you can find about this studio, they rebranded from a different studio name. And the biggest thing you can find from them is social media posts about how excited they were to work on things and work with Sony, and how awesome it was to eat donuts at their office, and how cool it was they all got free PS5s because they were working with Sony, but they have no game development whatsoever.
They were advertised as a mobile game company, right? Like that's,
I believe so, but
I
even
wonder
with
if that was an attempt from Sony, because like looking across the grand scheme, there's a lot of fucking money to be had in mobile games, right?
Yes.
A fuck ton of money to be had in mobile games. I don't know how involved Sony's ever been in a ton of like standalone mobile games that aren't like something else that's attached to another one of their projects. So I wonder if they were trying to kind of get more into that, because it can be extremely lucrative.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a smart call, but when you hire people that don't know what they're doing or don't know how to do their jobs, it's not going to go anywhere. And apparently that was one of the things with Neon Koi. They had developed absolutely nothing. So they had nothing to show for whatever X amount of dollars that Sony had thrown at them to be a studio that they bought out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and here's Firewalk Studios. Firewalk is signing off one last time. We began with the idea of bringing joy of multiplayer to a larger audience. Along the way, we assembled an incredible team who were able to navigate growing a new startup into a team during the global pandemic. Firewalk was founded in 2018. It was very small for its first couple years, only entering full production in 2022. Look at all these things, all their accomplishments, all their fucking accomplishments that don't mean shit. This is the reality. Although some of these and other aspects of the IP didn't land as we hoped, the idea of putting new things in the world is critical to pushing the medium forward.
Yep.
Go fuck yourself. You made a dog shit game. It failed. You deserve to get shut down. Like, bottom line,
100%.
that's it. It's done.
It's done.
I'm sure they're going to try to do what they can to, if there is anybody that they feel is worthwhile, on that team that might be skilled in some way, they might find their way to another like Sony studio or something. But hopefully none of the people that were involved with the concept of Concord and the decisions that they made along the way.
Well, funny enough, and this is where we were going to get into this a little bit. I'm not gonna deep dive as much because we talked about it on Tuesday night's main event. You can look at what Savvy talked about, but I was going to show you this. This is a conspiracy web that was formed by none other than Madam Savvy herself. This right here is a web of the different developers and names attached to not only Firewalk Studios, but also Neon Koi, and how a lot of these people have all worked with each other before on different projects. They've been on different podcasts together. They've been on different things. They've worked with, some of them have been involved directly with Sweet Baby Inc. or other consulting firms. And all of these guys have jumped around from games to podcasts to working with these consulting firms. One of the things that she pointed out and found that some of these guys have worked directly with these consulting firms that don't go and involve themselves in games, but actually work to install executives that have the correct ideologies and the correct attitudes into different studio spaces, into different companies, so that when they are bought out by these studios, and that's what they groom these studios to do, or they groom these companies to do, is to be bought out by studios directly so that they can involve themselves in larger IPs, that they're installing themselves into this. One of the other things she found is that some of these people, when they're in the middle of these game developments, like Concord, are looking up on Google how to do some very basic things, like how to make stairs in a video game. Some of them are saying like, wow, I didn't know anything about game development, and now I'm learning about it. So these people, a lot of these people that were involved in this don't even know how to do the basic parts of their job, let alone how to actually make a first-person shooter that's going to be innovative. But all of this stuff right here and all of these lines are all connected to different people that all worked for Firewalk Studios or Neon Koi and are now going to be dispersed. And that's what Savvy was trying to say. And that was a great point that you brought up. All these people are going to just disperse into other companies. They don't go away. They don't get fired and blacklisted from the company. They're just going to get sent to other companies to work for other people, because that's exactly what they do. And they just keep getting recycled over and over and over again into other companies. And we've seen other people like that, like, what's her name? Mags, who shows up in like multiple video games, tried to rewrite the Knights of the Old Republic game. She's like, I'm involved in the remake. And everybody's like, why? And she's like, I'm affecting the story for modern audiences. Then she got fired, and then look what happened. That game's now dead on arrival. That's not getting made. So yeah, it was kind of a whole big thing that Savvy started deep diving into.
Yeah, she has way too much time on her hands and should maybe be a better wife and sandwich maker. But yeah, like the truth is that these people all fucking know each other, right? Like across the industry. And when they get together at game conference, like game development conference and stuff like that, they all fucking meet, they all fucking talk. A lot of them know each other. That whiteboard reminds me of the rewriting Ripley thing that did like Steve Bannon at the top and all these connections to other political YouTubers and ended with like connections to us. Like a world, they all know each other. That's kind of what that reminded me of over for a second. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some of those people that get hired into other Sony studios. There's other people that probably aren't, and they're probably going to go work for a different fucking company. But yeah, I not too many of them are going to be out on their ass and dead for sure.
No, not at all. Yeah, but I personally think that if you worked on that game, you shouldn't be allowed to work on other video games. You should go find a different industry to work in.
It depends what your role was.
Yeah.
That's what I think. 100%. It depends what your role was. If you're just like a grunt doing like building environments and shit like that, and you're getting handed tasks to do and you do it, like okay, do you know what I mean? Not every single in the same way that you know, some people that are working on, just these absolute dog shit projects like the Acolyte, right? Some
Yeah,
people are just key grips there. Some people are
that's
just
true.
like, you know what I mean? Some people are just doing normal jobs. They don't have any control over the story, whatever. It's a fucking job. So,
Yeah,
I would say it depends on what people's roles were when it comes to stuff like that. That's what I would say.
yeah, that's fair.
But who knows?
You're being a lot
Um,
nicer than I am. So
what?
yeah, I said you're being a lot nicer than I am. I would just be like, no, we're making an example of everybody. All the heads are rolling. Maybe you shouldn't work for these people. If you should question whether or not you should work with this company before you jump in on board. But
I had contracts, depends.
yeah, yeah.